Hi there, it's Denise Hammonds again, coming from my house, talking to you today about vulnerability. Vulnerability is a skill that I think a lot of women miss. I know for myself, this was one of the most mysterious skills, and I really realized that when I did understand vulnerability and I embraced it, it changed everything about me, about my relationships, and it really just transformed me. There's a Brene Brown quote that I love, and it says, "Vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. Truth and courage aren't always comfortable, but they are never weakness." And I think it's so important for us to realize that vulnerability is not always comfortable. Being vulnerable is about letting your guard down and really connecting to how you feel. And it's being real with other people. It's being authentic. And part of that is being real with yourself. You can't be real with other people unless you're open and honest with yourself about who you are and what's going on with you. It's about embracing who you are and being okay with that and realizing that none of us have it all together. It's knowing that you are human and accepting that. When we are vulnerable, we understand and are willing to admit that when we get hurt, we need help sometimes, but it's okay to be emotional. We don't need to run or try to hide from other people. That's part of being vulnerable. Not having any mask or pretending to be someone or something we're not. The opposite of vulnerability is being guarded or defensive. So we need to get to this place as women where we understand that, if I'm a mature woman, I need to be secure with my own decisions, and I don't need to defend myself to anyone else. If someone doesn't like what I've done or said, then that is not my problem. It's on them. A phrase that you can use when others say or do something hurtful to you is ouch. Ouch clearly lets the other person know that you are hurt, but you're not giving rationale or explanation or defending. It's just a way to express that, that hurt. I remember before I knew how to be vulnerable and connect with what I was feeling, if somebody said something or did something hurtful, I would start to get angry. And anger is really a way of putting up your guard and not dealing with the feeling that's underneath it. A lot of times with anger, the feeling underneath is really hurt. And often I didn't know why I was angry when I would get that way with another person who had wronged me. It was the other person's fault, and I was justified in being angry. That was my thinking at the time. But when I started practicing vulnerability, I learned to ask myself a couple of questions. Question number one is, how do I feel? So getting to the bottom of what that emotion really is, because a lot of times we mask it with anger. Is it disappointment? Is it sadness? Is it hurt? What is that? And most of the time, the feeling that I identified was hurt. And sometimes it could be disappointment or sadness. But I discovered for myself when I identified that feeling, it was easier for me to know what to do with it and how to deal with it and move forward. If I was really sad, I just needed to process that and give myself some time to be sad and cry about it or whatever. I know that that was okay. That's normal, but I'm not going to stay there. I'm going to move forward at some point. So the second question to ask yourself is, what do I want? Often after identifying the emotion that you're feeling, whether it's hurt, disappointment, or sadness, you can identify what you want for yourself. For example, I want to feel important. I want to be respected. I want to be loved, etc. Even those are often those are things that are outside of your control because those may be dependent on other people. It's Also identifying and expressing the standards that you hold for yourself. It's much easier to be authentic when you know what you want and who you are. So that's a big piece of vulnerability. Being vulnerable also includes putting aside your pride and being willing to admit when you need help, or actually asking someone for help. Asking for help has never been something that was easy for me. It often goes against what society teaches us about being independent and not relying on someone else. But we all need help sometimes. We need to give ourselves a break and realize that we can't do it all. We need to reach out to other people, and we weren't meant to live without connection and help from each other. That's the way God wired us. So we need to just let that go and actually step into asking others when we need it. Vulnerability is also embracing your soft feminine side and not being ashamed or apologetic for being a woman. It's okay to cry in front of someone. Some women will use crying for manipulation. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not vulnerability. That's a way of trying to control someone. But embracing your soft side and being okay with who you are. Not afraid to admit that it doesn't really matter what others think, but knowing that God has wired you to be a beautiful woman with emotions and feminine gifts that makes you attractive as a woman. Vulnerability is the part of us that connects with other people. It's the place where we can be hurt. So there's a lot of risk there and it's scary, but it is also the place where we can experience that deep love and deep connection. And that's what makes vulnerability worth the risk. I want to challenge you to really think about who you are in any given moment, what you're feeling and what you want, and really connect to that and know that it's okay, that everything about you, you need to embrace it and own it and be good with it, because that's how God has wired you and that's where you're at. God only wants us to be real with others. And the big key to that is first being real with ourselves. True happiness and authenticity comes from loving who you are. And it doesn't mean that you're going to stay where you are and you can improve on yourself, but it means that you are okay with who you are, and it helps you be okay with other people as well. So I hope that you will work on vulnerability this week and really asking yourself those questions about how you feel and what you want, and connecting to those and letting your guard down and being vulnerable with other people.